We have our week four predictions for the 2025 college football season, and we're changing things up just a little bit. We are predicting pretty much every single Power Four game, with a few of the ones that are expected to be blowouts taken off. But we are changing our spread prediction from just being limited to the spread to a best bet prediction. So it's whether or not we favor the money line for either team, a different custom spread, or even the over/under. We'll go ahead and let you know what we think on that. This is not gambling advice. Don't take it as gambling advice and do not sue us. This first game is Texas Tech and Utah, and this is going to be quite a good one. We have this as a top 15 matchup in our poll that came out yesterday, so go ahead and check it out. And I think that Texas Tech has looked really good so far. We do have them ranked above Utah. The Utes have the home field advantage here, and it's really back and forth for me on this one. But I like Devin Dampier and the way he's played so far, and I do think the Utes will defend the home field. We're taking Utah to win it in a very tight one.
Next game up, a bit of a rivalry game between SMU and TCU. And both these teams have looked fairly decent. TCU and Josh Hoover have looked very explosive. Obviously, that big win over North Carolina to kick off their season. SMU fell a little bit short in their game against Baylor, but still a pretty solid team. But I really expected SMU to get a bigger win over Missouri State, even though it was on the road last week. So I'm leaning more with the Horned Frogs here. I think the high-flying offense of Josh Hoover and the Horned Frogs is going to outcompete this SMU defense that has lost quite a bit from this past offseason and has not been as good as I would have liked them to be. ESPN has TCU favored by 6.5. We think it might be a little bit closer at 5.5, but still in favor of the Horned Frogs.
This game doesn't really need too much addressing. Oregon is absolutely going to win. We have the spread at 28.5, so just a little bit inside of that 34.5. Wasn't too impressed with the win over Northwestern. Wildcats ended up with a backdoor cover near the end. Oregon State's looked terrible so far, so I do expect Oregon to make this one pretty close to that 28, 35 point range, winning by 4 or 5 touchdowns.
A big game here in the SEC with Jackson Arnold facing off against his former team, the Auburn Tigers taking on the Oklahoma Sooners. But Oklahoma has looked very, very tough to beat. John Mateer has looked like the best quarterback in college football, the Heisman front runner in our minds right now. And this is going to be a really interesting one. Both these teams have played against decent competition. Auburn facing off against Baylor early on in the season, Oklahoma with that big win over Michigan. But really, the big thing here is Oklahoma has the home field advantage. I think that's going to be the biggest X factor in this game. ESPN has Oklahoma favored by 6.5, but we are going to take OU money line in this one. Really could go either way because that Auburn rushing attack with Jackson Arnold has been very good. But I think Oklahoma can match that and has the slightly better defense here. So Oklahoma moves to 4-0.
Next, this one might be a little bit of a controversial pick because Ole Miss is a top 15 team in the AP poll. We have them ranked a little bit lower, and we also have Tulane ranked. I've been impressed by the Green Wave so far. Solid win over Duke, although the Blue Devils made it a little bit closer than they would have liked. Ole Miss favored by more than 10 points according to ESPN Bet. I think Tulane keeps it within a touchdown, and we're going to go with a little bit of a bold prediction here and give the Green Wave the win on the road over an Ole Miss team that doesn't necessarily have an identity at quarterback yet, but has looked solid overall this season.
Another huge game, this time in the Big Ten between Michigan and Nebraska. It's Sharon Moore's second game that he is sitting out of due to that self-imposed suspension. But Nebraska has looked very good offensively. Dylan Raiola has been an excellent quarterback thus far. And Michigan's offense has been very, very disappointing with Bryce Underwood. He really hasn't had the opportunity to showcase that arm talent, but I really don't think this Michigan offense is going to be able to get enough going to compete with the explosiveness on Nebraska's side. Probably the biggest game in recent memory for Cornhuskers fans, and I think they actually have a really solid chance of getting the win in this one. ESPN still favors Michigan, considering they are still ranked in the AP poll, but we really like Nebraska. We're favoring them by 3.5 points, and this is going to be a huge win for the Cornhuskers.
Next, North Carolina and UCF. Now, the Knights are favored by 6.5. And I don't know if I'd quite be willing to say that they'll cover this by a touchdown. I think it's going to be a close game. Both of these teams can score a lot of points, which is why we are taking the over as our best bet for this one. But I've just really been disappointed in Bill Belichick so far at North Carolina. They did not look good at all against TCU. And while UCF's not as good of a team as TCU, I think that they're still better than North Carolina and should be able to win this game at home, moving them to 3-0.
A big ACC matchup, NC State, who is currently undefeated, taking on Duke, coming off of that loss to Tulane. And Darian Mensah needs a little bit of a bounce back game here. And CJ Bailey and this Wolfpack offense have been fairly good thus far. Was a little bit of a closer game against Virginia, and maybe that 3-0 record is more attributed to having an easier schedule. This really could go either way. Duke is currently favored by 3.5, and that makes sense considering they are the home team. We're more in line with a Duke money line here. Could go to either side because I do think NC State does have an explosive offense that could give Duke some issues, especially considering how the Illinois game went. But we are going to take the Blue Devils to get a bounce back win here and move to 500.
Next up is Georgia Tech and Temple. We almost didn't put this one on here, but Temple hasn't looked terrible so far, and Georgia Tech coming off of that win against Clemson might come out just a little bit flat. I do think that Temple ends up likely covering the spread, but we're more confident in just saying Georgia Tech wins it by around 3 scores. Not quite willing to go to that 24-point margin. We have the Yellow Jackets moving to 4-0 though. Next up is West Virginia at Kansas. Now, this is probably a surprising pick for you to see because Kansas is favored by 2 touchdowns. I would say, we're pretty confident in West Virginia keeping it within 10 points, but we went ahead and picked the Mountaineers, and there's a few reasons behind it. First of all, we were pretty high on that Pitt team that they beat last week, although we know it's a rivalry game, crazy things can happen. But still, I've been impressed with West Virginia so far under Rich Rodriguez. Sure, they've lost a game, but so has Kansas at this point to Missouri. And Missouri's barely ranked for us. I think that Jalen Daniels and the Jayhawks just seem to lose random games throughout the year that they really shouldn't. This really feels like one that West Virginia absolutely can win. So we're going to go ahead and take the upset pick.
Next game up is South Carolina against Mizzou, a big SEC matchup, and South Carolina coming off of a pretty bad loss against Vanderbilt, and they lost Lenore Sellers during that game. Now, he is expected to be back in the starting position for this game as he has been practicing throughout the week. And in that case, South Carolina is going to have a much better chance against a Mizzou team that has been very good thus far. Bo Perbula has been a really decent starting quarterback for them, and Ahmad Hardy is one of the best running backs in the country. But I do think after such a bad loss to Vandy, South Carolina needs a bounce back win real quick, and they will get that with a road win over Mizzou here. Mizzou is favored by 9.5 points, but I think that's kind of disrespectful to the South Carolina defense. I think they can keep this within a touchdown, and we are going to take South Carolina here. Now, if Lenore Sellers doesn't play or for whatever reason ends up exiting the game, then Mizzou has an infinitely better chance of winning that game. We would likely take the Tigers there, but we are going to go with the Gamecocks for right now.
Next up, Florida and Miami. In the preseason, we thought this was going to be a pretty good game. Now, not so much. The Gators have looked absolutely terrible. Billy Napier is coaching for his job at this point, and it really just isn't working for him. Miami is favored by 7.5. I think that they can cover that and do a little bit more even. Hurricanes should win this one easily, going to 4-0.
A border war of sorts here between Illinois and Indiana, two of the hottest teams in the Big Ten, and this will be Indiana's first real test of the season, and they get it at home against an Illinois team that has very convincing wins over Duke, as well as beating up on their inferior competition. I really could see this going either way because I think Indiana has a little bit more explosive of an offense between Fernando Mendoza and Elijah Surratt. But man, the way this Illinois team has been playing lately, I think they are the better team in this case. As you can see by our polls that we think they are significantly better than Indiana. ESPN has Indiana favored by 5.5 points, but we are going to take Illinois money line here, and Illinois moves on to 4-0 to start their season.
Then it's Arizona State and Baylor. And this one might also be a little bit surprising that we have the Sun Devils winning. But Texas State, I think, is a very solid team. ASU took care of business against them last week. Baylor's already got that one loss to Auburn, who we do have as a top 15 team. Just all around, I think that Arizona State is still better than people are expecting. They have a great rushing game, and if they can slow this one down, I think that they absolutely have the ability to win it on the road, which is exactly what we are going to take them to do, pulling off a slightly surprising upset against Baylor.
Next up is going to be Cal versus San Diego State, and we are very surprised with this Cal team. We didn't think they were going to be this good after they had so many players leave in the transfer portal, but they have surprised us behind their true freshman quarterback, who has been absolutely amazing thus far with such an explosive offense. I don't think San Diego stands much chance in this game. ESPN has Cal favored by 12 and a half. We slightly raised that to 16 and a half in favor of the Golden Bears, and they will get off to a 4-0 start.
And then the last game, starting at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Michigan State going on the road to face USC. And I think that Sparty's getting severely disrespected here. 17 and a half points seems like a crazy spread to me. Now, that being said, we were relatively high on Michigan State before the season started. So I do think that maybe we have slightly unrealistic expectations for them, but I think that they can absolutely cover this. I also think that USC probably shouldn't quite be ranked yet. If they win this one, they probably will deserve it at that point, and we do have them winning it, moving to 4-0. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than people expect. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.